Hey guys, how's it going, Companion? So today I want to go over some of the cards for Blackrock Mountain that were announced some while I was gone, and I wanted to catch up on a bit. And now that we're starting to see cards come about, we're starting to get a little bit of a picture about what's going on, which I think is really the most interesting thing. Now, before I get into the cards, I want to discuss a few things. So when it comes to evaluating cards before the full set comes out, it's mostly like a curiosity thing. In the past, I know I've been very wrong on some of the cards. For instance, I thought Dr. Boom was okay, not really too great, and then it turns out, well, the card's a little bit better than that. It's at least decent in basically every deck ever in the history of Hearthstone. Yeah. So people are wrong. And why is this? This is because when it came to Nax, Nax was the first expansion. People didn't really know how things will change, and some people got it right. People like Reynad, who saw the zoo going down, saw all these cards with death rattles and super annoying bullcrap and undertakers. He thought they would be just amazing in that type of deck, and he saw that as the future, and he was right. And people like me, I thought maybe control would be the future, and I was wrong. So some people are going to guess the themes right and wrong when it comes to a small expansion like that, but when it came to GVG, the introduction of over 100 cards pretty much put everything up in the air, so much so that nobody really evaluated cards on how the game would be. You know, will it be aggro? Will it be control? Will it be tempo? How will it be? Nobody even really bothered to guess when it came to GVG because they knew so many things would be up in the air. And yeah, that's why a lot of people, including myself, are wrong on these predictions. But when it comes to Hearthstone in the current stage, it is an extremely aggressive game where I don't think 30 cards or 31 cards or however many coming out of the Blackrock expansion are going to significantly change enough of that. So I think for the first time ever, there's mostly a consensus, and I want to bring you guys this thought that the aggressive type of ladder that we're seeing right now will probably, almost certainly, not change with Blackrock Mountain. So cards that fit the aggressive theme or that fit a theme that would allow a controlling deck to stop aggression, those will be good cards. Cards that don't do one of those two things are going to be crap. For instance, the legendary released. This card is not good in aggressive decks. This card is not good against aggressive decks. So this card is absolutely worthless. Okay, that's basically the standard that I think, and most people agree, that is what we should be judging the cards by. So let's get to the cards. So there were a few cards released earlier today, and we'll start with those. We have the first, Dragon Egg. So Dragon Egg is very similar to Nerubian Egg, where it's an egg, and it's a 0/2. And it does stuff when it gets hit or hits something. And it's hard to hit something because it's a 0/2, but because it's a 1-drop, it's pretty interesting. So Nerubian Egg fits the zoo theme, fits the aggressive theme pretty well. We actually see a lot of use in Warlock decks because they like to just have something stick on the board if they ever want to power overwhelm something or combo wombo, all that kind of stuff. So it fits that theme, it fits the Zooey theme. We haven't seen Zoo Warlock in a while, so we haven't seen Nerubian Egg played too much recently, but it's still a very solid, very strong card, and again, it kind of correlates to how many people actually play Silences, which right now is quite a bit. In my experience, when new cards come into an expansion block, people want to try them, and even though it may not be the best thing to include them in the deck, most people, what they tend to do is substitute the silence cards. And I saw this in Nax, I saw this in GVG, and after some time the silences came back. But what I can say is that I think Dragon Egg will be strong because I think it fits the aggressive deck, kind of, and I think it'll be better at the start rather than later on because I think some people will cut silences out of their decks to include these cards. So Dragon Egg, how does it work? When the minion takes damage, summon a 2/1 whelp. If you play this on turn 1 and your opponent hits it, well, you get a 2/1. And it's really pretty decent in that regard. I mean, most 1-drops don't really do anything. They're just there to be annoying and to develop some kind of board presence that you can steamroll from. Now, Nerubian Egg doesn't really do that too well because on turn 2, to play a 0-2 that you then need to attack with can be a little bit too slow when you're playing an aggressive deck against another aggressive deck. And that may seem a little bit crazy, but it's really not. When it comes to Dragon Egg, because it's a 1-drop, it actually makes it a lot more powerful in this regard. If you are the aggressive deck and you're against an aggressive deck, I would argue that Dragon Egg beats Nerubian Egg. And if the aggressive themes continues to be even more aggressive, I think Dragon Egg will be quite a good card. Now, some people really think about this card in the themes of buffing and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'll Power Word Shield it or Blessing of Kings it or something like that, and then it'll be really good and stuff. It's really hard to balance those type of mid-game decks with enough buffs for them to be relevant because they don't really beat the aggressive decks enough and they don't really beat the control decks enough. So it's just kind of like a fun thing deck, which, I mean, you kind of want to win when you play ladder, and I don't think that'll really do it. But what will do it is you play Dragon Egg and you play the small buff cards like Dark Iron Dwarf, like Defender of Argus, other taunt activators, other attack buffs, you name it. All the kind of zooey attack buffy stuff that's already in the game works with this card and works with some of the zooey decks that we've seen in the past, and I think this card might make Zoo Warlock alive again. So yeah, I didn't really like Zoo Warlock, but I gotta say I like Zoo Warlock more than Mech Mage and a few other cards, so I don't really mind that too much. Next on the list, we have the Dragon King Sorcerer, which is 4 for a 3/5, and it fits kind of the theme of the last card, where if you are playing buff effects, specifically buff spells in this case, it can be pretty powerful. And it is important to note that this creature has the dragon tag, the only 4-drop dragon besides this in the expansion is the 5/6, the big dude. So in dragon themed decks, I don't think most will actually pick this over that one because 5/6 is just immediately a much more powerful body, and well, I might be wrong. There might be some crazy buff decks that might come about, but I kinda doubt it. And the reason is 3/5 for 4 is kind of one of those things that's just not really good enough. A lot of buff cards are also not very good. The only exceptions are mainly the priest ones. The priest ones are like Power Word Shield, again, is probably the best synergy you're going to see with this card. Just playing this on turn 4, your opponent ignores it, you're going to like steamroll the game at that point. Or you can play it on turn 5. You can do Dragon King Sorcerer and Power Word Shield. It's a 5 mana, but you get a 4/8. So, you know, that's pretty damn strong because if you're playing Priest, you want really high health minions so you can effectively utilize your hero power. Now, this card is not really like the Trog effect because it's only when you target it with a spell. So it's like 2 limiting factors. You need to target it not with an ability, not with like a battle cry or anything like that. You need to target it with a spell, and it has to be your spell. So you have to be playing buffs. And again, buffs kind of suck. You might see some play this in Arena just because it's decent stats. 3/5 for 4 in Arena is decent. It might be kind of important to have some kind of dragon presence in your deck in Arena. Probably not, but it's possible. And you know, some classes, again, like Priests, really thrive on some of their buffs because they're good, while others, well, not so good. So I'm not too crazy about this card. It's cool. I'll probably make some dragon-themed deck with it, but I'm not really too impressed with it. Now, Lava Shock was a card that really impressed a lot of people. This was released some time back while I was visiting Greece with my mom and stuff. I was a little bit gone, so I didn't give you guys my view on this card right away. A lot of people are really excited about the card because you know, the text kind of makes it seem really overpowered. So it's also a little bit unclear, and the devs have been kind enough to let us know what's going down with this card. So it does 2 damage, kind of like a crappy, you know, direct damage spell, 2 for 2, not very good, but it has unlock your overloaded mana crystals, and this has the effect of unlocking the overloaded ones that are currently overloaded from the previous turn and the ones that you've overloaded this turn. So that seems really overpowered, but there's a few things at play here. The first is that cards that overload in Shaman right now are not really used very much because they're a bit slow, because, well, you kind of screw up your future turns a bit too much and you just kind of get really clunky. It doesn't really fit the aggressive thing too much. And for this card to actually be good, you have to be playing a lot of overloaded cards. So this card might, produce some very unusual decks, and it's kind of hard to gauge how they will do. So this is kind of one of those curveballs. It's also important to note that in Blackrock, each class is getting 2 class cards. They're getting, I believe, a rare and a common. So this is the rare of the Shaman, and we can expect it to be more than likely more powerful than the common. So, this might be all that you're going to really get in your Shaman deck from this expansion. Now, what will it really do? I think it will bring back Earth Elemental in these type of themed decks, and that's mainly the kind of synergy that you're going to see. The problem Earth Elemental is if you play and it gets removed with like Sap or Big Game or something, you actually lose the game immediately because you can't play anything on your next turn. You get ridiculously tempoed out. So Lava Shock kind of stops that from happening. Now I mentioned how it unoverloads you for this turn and for the next. It's kind of hard to do both of those things where they actually matter. So, if you played an Earth Elemental last turn, for this card to get like ridiculous value, you'd have to like play another Earth Elemental this turn and then Lava Shock, and then you get like 3 mana back to then play like, I don't know, a Hex or something. So it's like, you kind of get it. It sounds really overpowered, but like, when are you really ever going to do that? So, I don't know. I'm not too optimistic about this card. I will tell you guys that. I think it looks really good, but I think that type of deck is going to need a lot of fine-tuning until it takes off. I think that deck might work, but it might work like a month after the expansion or like 2 months after the expansion. I don't think people are going to like figure it out in time. So that's my take on Lava Shock. Then we have the last card on the chopping block today, Axe Flinger. So this card is kind of interesting because, well, it has a very unusual ability. Stat-wise, it's a warrior, common, 4/2/5, pretty terrible. But whenever it takes damage, you deal 2 damage to the enemy hero, so it's kind of like the Leper Gnome effect, and, well, it has 5 health, and you can damage it yourself because you're a warrior, so it kind of works if you make that type of themed deck, which might maybe work. Using like the newly introduced Grim Patron, something like that, maybe you can do something. But again, I am not optimistic about this. All I see in this card is if people keep playing Mech Mage and Mech Mage beats everything that's brought out of Blackrock Mountain expansion, people might start playing Axe Flingers in some kind of mid-range warrior or something. And yeah, Axe Flinger might just make it so you can do too much damage to the mage's face and prevent him from playing 4-drops to your 4-drop, and this card is pretty crappy, man. As far as Arena is concerned, stats are more important in Arena than ability. So again, this makes this card worse in Arena than in Constructed, and that is a bit sad. I feel Axe Flinger might be a card that will see absolutely no play unless the meta gets really aggressive and utilizes these cards that do a lot of area incidental damage, like Arcane Missiles, Goblin Blast Mage type of effects. I don't know. There's some small possibility that it might happen, but again, I am not too optimistic. So overall today, out of all the cards, really only the Dragon Egg really fits kind of the aggressive theme, and the rest kind of are like secondary. So it's a little bit not so impressive. I know. But you guys have to keep in mind that a lot of people will forcefully be trying some of these cards, and because it is a tiered unlock, so every week you're going to get a few of these cards, and the next week a few more of these cards. What is going to be really cool is to see, just like when Nax came out, how people will evolve the meta in the temporary sense as only some of these get released. So I'm mostly curious to see that when all the things are going to be up in the air, when nothing is too refined, some of the craziness really comes out of Hearthstone, and I'm pretty excited to see that happen this time around. But for now, I await a few more card releases because, well, I want to make some super OP decks just like I wanted to in every other expansion release. And the last few cards announced don't really excite me too much. But still, they're cool. They're there. I enjoy them still. Hope you guys do too. I'll see you guys tomorrow.